What's up guys, this is Sugi here, and today I'm gonna be jumping into a game that is not a JRPG. So sometimes I do delve into these Western RPGs, which is very rare, but when I do, I'm usually absolutely in love with them. And here's the latest one, which is Diablo 4, which got released today, or in case you bought the early access, you already got to play the game on June 2nd. Now this review will be based on the PC version of the game and my experience playing through the main storyline and bit of the end game content. So people who have played the Diablo games before know that after you play the game through, there's usually some end game content. So in the earlier games, you play through normal, then you got to nightmare, then you got to hell, and eventually into infernal. But that format has been changed a bit. So, and obviously like all of this sort of like high-end PvP content is not exactly there yet, and obviously people are not max level yet. So the true end game is probably going to be emerging in a week or two as more people basically get to the later levels. Now, if you are coming from Diablo 3, the game is a lot more serious and darker in its colors. The gameplay is kind of mostly the same. Things have been tweaked somewhat, especially the item systems. And now there is also a skill tree, which kind of offers a lot more customization compared to any previous Diablo game there is. So there's a lot of customization which you can do for your character, to items, to enchantments, and obviously through the skill tree, and also through the Paragon system, which you unlock once you hit level 50. Now, Diablo 4 is an open world game. In the previous titles, you kind of had these zones, which were like broken down into acts. Usually it was Act 1, 2, 3, and 4. Diablo 4 has 6 of them, but they're not like, confined into a certain location in the map. You will be bouncing around on the map as you progress throughout the game, and you don't even need to play them on a particular order. So basically you can play Act 2 first before you complete Act 1, and after you basically do Act 1 and 2, then you can get to progress to Act 3. Now, also the cool thing about the game is that there's a lot of this sort of a side content that you can do, and that's kind of like what is expected of you. You're not supposed to like go through the main mission only at all times. You're going to be wandering off to doing a lot of side missions, and the zones and the monsters who actually scale with your level inside the game. So technically you could complete the game when you're level 60 or level 30 basically, and you can, as I already mentioned, you can kind of start the quest lines in the order you prefer early on. So there's a lot of like options when you're going to be completing the game. I went to defeat the final boss when I was like probably 47 or 48 or something, but I could have done it a lot more earlier if I had the preference of completing the main missions first, than just actually like paying attention to PvP or actual side missions in the world. So that's kind of like, there's a lot of freedom in the world, a lot of things to explore, a lot of dungeons, and a lot of side quests obviously, which can be unlocked through multiple different ways. So you can find a corpse which holds out some type of journal, and this will start a quest. So there's a lot of like these hidden things in the game and unlockable shrines which will give you different types of boosts. Now, just like in the old games, you have these waypoints which are used to basically travel around the world. On top of this, you will be getting a mount in the game, which is first in Diablo. So this is kind of like, the game is a bit of a mixture between Diablo and World of Warcraft in that sense, that they brought in a lot of these good elements, what they used in World of Warcraft, and brought it into Diablo. So it feels a lot more like MMORPG, but you're not exactly in the same instance with other players, so you won't be seeing other players that much unless you will be going into cities and towns. And obviously there's different like levels, so you can activate world level 2 in the beginning of the game, so that will be a different like a realm altogether, so you will be meeting different people depending on the realm you are at. Now, as I already mentioned, there's like a lot of side quests, treasure, and these events which span around the map, And throughout these events and side quests, you basically get this renown on different regions. There's 5 different regions. As you get more progress, or basically that reputation on each region, you will be unlocking different benefits like more skill points, increasing the potion maximum, and other types of things. So basically there's like a benefit of like grinding out enemies and events on certain location. But obviously you need to get level 50 in order to get 4 and 5 on this progression trees on these zones. So you can't exactly like max them out in the very beginning. And obviously some quests also will be unlocked after you beat the game, so there are a lot of things which are tied into progress. You're not able to start every quest in the very beginning. And obviously, like, yeah, most of the quests are like 95% of it are to kill monsters and maybe collect something, or just kill monsters. And sometimes there will be like, oh, you need to deliver this letter into another city or talk to this guy at this place. But mostly, yeah, it's like killing monsters. That's most of the quests what they are. Obviously, it's a lot less redundant as it was in Diablo 3 or Diablo 2, so there's a bit of variety on these events and like how they play out and how the bosses play out. I mean, it's mostly kind of like the same vibe, but it, you know, they try to do a bit of a variety here, best to their ability, without changing the game too much, and I appreciate that. I really do. And that's very important about games like these, which are all about kind of like one thing. They can get really boring really fast if they stay like extremely repetitive, and that's why you really need to hone out the way the combat feels and etc. Now there are 5 different classes to choose from, and I basically tried all of them. Barbarian was the one that I had the least amount of experience out of the roster, so I mained Necromancer and Sorcerer. Also leveled out my Rogue and Druid into level 20 during the beta. So I had kind of like a good experience with all of them. Some are a bit more better at like AoE abilities and clearing out mobs, and some are just like better at PvP. But it's too early to comment on the PvP, as I said earlier, because most people are not doing PvP yet. And then there's obviously like the PvP zones are kind of like level zoned out, so you can't have a 50 level person being on the same PvP arena as a person who is level 10. So unless they're in the same party, I guess. But yeah, you have also the party system, which allows you to do dungeons with your friends and everything. And even if you do like mainline quests, both of you will be getting the progress, which is very nice. So this is a game I do recommend actually playing with your friends, and obviously both of you should probably roll out a different class. And all the classes do have a lot of variability, like maybe 3 main different builds that you can go. They usually have 3 different damage types, which that they specialize on, and they kind of like offer usually. For example, the sorcerer kind of has fire and ice, and then he has lightning, and you know, obviously those elements play a lot into those builds. Now, you also have ability to change the cosmetics inside the game, changing how you look in terms of like the equipment, so you can change the color tints and swap the colors of the equipment. Even if you're wearing an X item, you can still make it look like item B. So once you like salvage items inside the game, you will be basically unlocking these cosmetic changes. So you can dictate how your character actually looks like, and nobody can really tell, oh, he's wearing this item, so that means, or he looks like this, and that means he has this and this item. No. So you have this lot of cosmetic freedom here, then you can like choose tattoos and stuff like that. But I do have to criticize, like, I wish Blizzard was on the same level as like these Korean MMOs, which just offer like a lot more customization on how the characters look like. Like, I'm not gonna lie, like, some of the female characters even looked kind of like tranny, a bit masculine, to be honest. So there was this sort of a feminine lack in certain characters and how they looked, especially the sorceress. So in terms of like how you adjust the characters' look was a bit limited. And then like, yeah, maybe I want to change the body type. Not all druids are actually fat, you know, like I would actually maybe even argue that they would be a lot more lighter in terms of their diet and stuff like that, at least in a historical context, right? I kind of wish they had these types of things, but they obviously have their own. It's not a secret that Blizzard has this sort of a fat fetish going on. It has been going on through all of their games, since World of Warcraft, and this has been one of their positions that they have been holding for quite some time, and I don't think it's going to be changing anytime soon, even after the merger. But it's not something that I'm a big fan of, the body positivity part. I mean, if people want to make fat characters, that's fine, but at least add the option of adding a slim character as well. And then you can also like change out your mount to different visual accessories, like you can I don't know what's the thing that you sit on, you can change that. And also there's different types of mounts. But where are the camels? I want my camel mount. I mean, there are camel models inside the game, but I couldn't find anybody having an actual camel. It was all horses, and hopefully we're gonna get camels at some point. And I think I will because the model already exists. It just probably needs to do animations and stuff like that. And in terms of the open world, I think it was well done. The background art is great. There's like daylight time. Sometimes there's like a night look or daylight look in some of these zones, which is good. They used that in also in World of Warcraft. But I have to say something of an article that I read in not too long ago about this Deus Ex style hub system. Like, it's not really about like how big these open world games are. It's really about how interactive they are. Can I destroy this mountain? Can I fly through here? Or can I do this and that? It's like how I'm interacting with the world and the NPCs in it. Is it fun? And yeah, you can destroy some like pottery and trees and bushes inside the game, but like, yeah, it's just like pretty looking terrain with a lot of monsters which you're just going there to kill, but it's not like super interactive. Like, there are these parts where you're going to be jumping around or using a raffle to move across the bridge, but those are kind of like, they're not interactive experiences because they're done automatically by the character. Now, in terms of like the balance inside the game, I don't want to chime into that too much because I haven't done excessive amount of PvP, and obviously I haven't gone through late game. Most people haven't, so a lot of the builds are still kind of theoretical phase. But I can comment on actual the difficulty and the boss designs. And I think there's a bit of a roller coaster in that balance. Like, the Act 1 final boss was probably the most hardest boss in the game, in my opinion, in terms of its mechanics. But everything else, like, felt very easy, and maybe I was over leveled, but obviously everything scales. But I felt like the mechanics in certain bosses were too easy and too simplistic. Obviously that's going to be ramping up in, you know, as you go into the harder difficulties. And obviously when I played Diablo 3, I didn't die at all in the normal difficulty. I think I died on Act 2 on Nightmare first time with my character when I was playing Monk. Yeah, and then there's some bosses which will get stuck and absolutely do nothing, which was kind of bad. These were mostly like side bosses and dungeons, and there was one main boss that I had this problem with. But aside from that, there wasn't really like many bugs inside the game, which I actually really liked. And then another thing I maybe had an issue with the design was the gear. So in the beginning of the game, you are actually swapping out your gear on a very frequent basis. And because there is this sort of an upgrade system inside the game, so after you basically get an item, you have the ability to basically improve it on the blacksmith, and you can raise its stats and, you know, things like that. But because you get so many items on such a frequent basis, it's basically redundant to do that. After you get into level 40, then it's actually making a lot more sense to do those upgrades because you will be changing items a lot less. But in the beginning, it does feel a bit of a redundant experience because I think there's just too high drop rates, especially for legendaries, in my opinion, that there was too much frequently legendaries basically dropping out. Now when it comes to the optimization of the game runs really well. Blizzard always has been really good at optimizing their games, outside from Warcraft 3 Reforged, and the servers also have been great. No loading times, it's just been very, very good, and I don't have nothing to complain about it. And as far as I know, people have been having great experience also on console. Now, as for the audio and the sound, I think voice actors did excellent choices and performances here. They didn't feel it was bad or lacking in any way. And I would say the soundtrack was pretty good, but I have to give them more of a listen because I was kind of like doing other stuff, like watching YouTube and things like that. I was playing that type of a game for me, so I can't really comment too much on the soundtrack, but based on the tracks I heard, it's actually pretty good. Now, let's get into some spoilers. There will be some spoilers in this segment where we're talking about the actual story. So in case you don't want to know anything, now it's time to pause the video and come back later after you completed it. Now, first of all, I said this already, so the game is a lot more darker, there's more gore than in Diablo 3. It's not berserk exactly, but it's definitely more serious and mature. There are some great stories also being told in the side quests, which you want to dabble into obviously, but I actually hope that in some ways they would have added in more meat to the bone into the actual main story, like a bit more couple of events and build-ups for certain characters, and maybe even having some of the main characters have their own side quests as well. Because, well, actually that would have made sense because, well, you will understand in a second. Now, in a Blizzardly fashion, complexity of the story is not that huge. The plot has not really that twists twists in it. It's quite straightforward, especially after Act 1. Act 1 is kind of like things are a bit in secrecy and you don't know exactly what's going on, what Lilith is plotting and all that type of stuff. But after like maybe Act 2 and 3, it's very straightforward what's going to happen and you kind of like know how everything is going to end. And that's always like well, a catalyst for a bad story if the viewer already knows what's gonna happen. Like, sometimes you just have to do Shamalaya and do some retarded fucking twist, or you just have to do a couple of curveballs to basically trick the viewer thinking that this is gonna happen, but exactly the reverse is gonna happen. Somebody's gonna betray you or whatever. And also, yeah, people are saying that the story is good, and that really has a lot to do more with the atmosphere and the way that the scenes are done, which is very cinematic. So you have these 2 CGI scenes in the game, in the beginning and also before the final battle or the final dungeon. So 2, which is actually a lot less than in the previous games, because Diablo 3 had 4 cutscenes, 4 CGI cutscenes. And then there are these like more camera focused scenes, which I wish that they had used more, because it shows out the character models more and you can like be more relate to them instead of this helicopter view when people are just waving their hands and talking. I mean, that can do that too, and this kind of gets into my biggest criticism about the story, which is it follows this Game of Thrones meta where you basically kill every fucking character you introduce. And this has to stop. Like, it's not good writing to kill most characters that you're going to be introducing. It is shock value, but it's not good writing, because characters have to go through redemption arcs, they have to go through character development in general, but if you're going to kill them, even if you introduce them in Act 1 and then kill them in Act 4, there may not be time enough to like build them up. Like, basically all the characters that are introduced in the game die, like, except like 2. So if like there's going to be like more content coming in or sequels and stuff like that, they just have to introduce new characters, which probably going to die too. So it's not really like, and this is kind of like what they left off with Diablo 3, which was kind of like a flop in a way. They killed off all the characters in there too. Like Deckard Cain was killed and Leah was killed, and like there was not really many characters left there to basically bring up for Diablo 4. And that's not something you want to do. There are ways to write the characters out. You make them blind, you make them end up in a wheelchair or coma or become a ghost. There are so many ways to like write them in a fantasy setting that they are dead or they're kind of gone or written sort of off, but they're not killed. So that's very important caveat in here. That so there's not really that much similar phases, but obviously like the demons are always brought up back, and this kind of goes back into Duriel and Andariel, which were kind of introduced again. They were bosses in Diablo 2, and these are like iconic bosses. I mean, I didn't play Diablo 2 myself, I watched all my friends play it, but these are iconic characters, and you have to like bring them on a way. You have to play in the nostalgia a bit, and it just didn't do a really good job of like introducing these characters or make some iconic reveals, which a lot of other IPs have done much better in recent years, because a lot of people, Marvel, Disney, you know, etc., have been like milking that nostalgia really, really well. Now, all things considered, Diablo 4 is a great game, but there are some quality of life changes I would like to see, however. The one problem I had with the game is that you unlock the mount on beginning of Act 4, and I wish that we could have gotten it earlier. It's a bit of a drag to move around in the game, especially when I was maining Necromancer, which doesn't have any movement speed abilities or making her move faster. So it was kind of redundant and annoying to go from place A to B and A to B and A to B over and over again. Luckily, once you get the mount, you get to use it on all the characters since level 1, so I don't need to do the mount quest again for my alts, which is very convenient. But that's something I would have wanted to see. Another one which was missing was the WSD, WASD movement, which is really weird given the fact that there's a control scheme for that already in the console version, far as I know. There was also some tooltips like missing. Like I couldn't tell like how much health my skeletons or my golems had, and that was kind of like something that should have been there, like certain tooltips and settings, kind of quality of life stuff we're kind of missing. And maybe I wanted to like see things like the progress of the map being shared to all characters, where are the waypoints and stuff like that. If I've discovered the whole map with one character, why can't that progress over to my other characters? Because they already had certain things like the shrines, which are basically crossing over to all characters, and the mounts. So maybe I had some different things there. Now lastly, I'm going to be talking about the elephant in the room, which is the money system here. A lot of these top reviewers never really talk about like, what is the price of a game? Is it like a fair price for the working class, the everyday consumer? It's an expensive game. It's like, what, 80 euros for the pre-order and 60, 70 for the normal version. That's a high expensive game, especially when you remember that I think Diablo 3 was $49.99. So that's 20 euros more than back then, which is crazy in my opinion. And this is also on the fact because the game does come out with an in-game shop which has things that you can buy with real money. Now in a Blizzardly fashion, these are in a very expensive and ridiculous prices. Some of the armor sets cost like more than 20 euros. And if you compare it into Fortnite, League of Legends, freemium style games, they don't have these high price points, and also like 7 euros for a new mount skin, which doesn't even look that good. Like most of the sets that you will be unlocking through the main game are actually pretty good enough already. So even if the prices were like 10th of what they are right now, I wouldn't actually spend any money on them. But obviously, because I bought the digital deluxe, I will be getting the season pass as well, and maybe I will write an article or some continue up video. I don't know if my subscribers are interested in Diablo. We will see if people want to see more content of it. Yeah, I think it's a bit expensive, and I don't know what they're exactly planning here. Are they going to be charging us for new classes? Are we going to be buying an expansion? When that's going to be hitting in, and what is going to be the price of the expansion? So there's a lot of these questions in the monetization, and it seems to me, I haven't read too much about the developer statements regarding this, but it seems to be that they maybe are aiming towards a bit more like a World of Warcraft development cycle. So they're going to be adding a lot more content in the future. The story kind of allows that to happen also. So I don't really know, but I kind of feel that they are going to be continuing to pump out a lot of content, and they're getting a lot of money from this season pass shit. So, and it's very expensive, as I said. And I don't necessarily like that type of price valuations when I'm paying already like a AAA game price. So I think there's like a question about what is fair and what is like a just price, in my opinion. Because Fortnite, you can play through the season pass, and if you like complete all the steps, you get to buy the next season pass as well without putting any money in, if you play like till it's full. Diablo 4 will not have that option. So just saying. Now in terms of the pre-order and digital deluxe edition bonuses, I think they were kind of weak. I mean, the mount skin that I got, which looks like it looks like horse meat. That's what it looks like. I mean, aside from that, like, I don't think they were really that great, and I think a lot of the items on the shop are not great either. And that's kind of my worry about it, because is it going to be enough that people buy the game so Blizzard will start doing expansions? or do they want to make money from Season Pass in order that they will be creating more classes, like bringing the Crusader or Paladin or Amazon or Monk, for instance. So that's kind of like a question I don't know right now, and I would like to see a kind of like an answer to that. So I don't know if they're going to milk us, what is the road here, and it kind of remains to be seen. And obviously the Season Pass stuff hasn't started yet, so it's kind of up in the air. But I'm not going to make this review any longer. It was very extensive already. I mean, I'm saying that this was like 8.5 for me as like a rating. I don't do ratings, but I just kind of wanted to put it out here because most reviewers give literally like 9 out of 10 or 10 out of 10. I think it's not a perfect game, and it's a really good game, but it's like kind of what when going into a bit of like the faults in the story, and also like some of these quality of life things kind of in there. And yeah, it is like a Diablo style game, and it does get a bit redundant, and I don't know how you could exactly fix that. I honestly don't know. So it's kind of like maybe I'm putting like unrealistic expectations for this game to reach like 10 out of 10 rating. But I'm gonna wrap it up here. Maybe I will do more Diablo videos on this channel, but I will be bidding you farewell now. See you soon. Cheers.